All right, so week 9, really just going to revisit some joins. In particular, we're going to go over our left and right joins. And I know we've kind of covered this in other places before. In fact, I think when we went over joins the first time, I kind of went over some left joins. But we're going to go over a couple more. In fact, we're going to cover outer joints specifically. So let's kind of get started. So let's use Keela. And in this case, I think we're going to use actor table because I think I've put in some information into there. So let me select everything from actor and let's sort it by last update descending. Let's see if I still have my, yep. Okay. So I still have some of my data in there. So you can see that my name actually exists in the actor table. And that's because I wanted to showcase some of this stuff. So I'm glad it's still there so we don't have to waste time doing that. Okay. So we are used to doing inner joins where if I wanted to know, okay, you know what, how many films are an actor in? So let's kind of go off that basis. So if I'm going to select the actor dot first name and actor dot last name, and then let's do a count of film ID. We're going to do that from actor A. I'm going to start off with an inner join, and I know that this isn't accurate, but I want to start with the inaccurate so we can go over why. So we're going to do our normal join to kind of say like, oh, we want to know what actors are in which films. So we join to film actor, and we could additionally go to, in fact, let's just, we'll just end there. So at this point, we could see which actors are in which films. And I forgot to do our group by, so let's do that. A dot first name and A dot last name. There we go. So now we can see what films are in. So let's filter direct specifically for me and see if I'm there. So I'm going to say where A dot last name is equal to Crook. Now, if I run this, you'll notice that nothing's there, even though I am in the actor table. And really, we want everybody, whether or not they've been in a movie, because we can just show 0 as the number of films they're in. So this is where the left join comes in. So I'm going to say left join. We can run it. And now you can see that I show up there, which is pretty handy. Right, so that's the left join. You'll also see this expressed as left outer join. Left join and left outer join are actually the same thing. So don't be confused by the outer word there. You'll see me always just use a left join and a right join. I don't like to use the outer join because it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And the reason being, I'll show you. Let me pull up a list of joins here with our handy dandy little graphic here. The reason that I like to exclude the word outer is because in reality, a left join kind of includes the middle as well. You can see up here, it says the left join. When we do a basic left join, it includes both the left side, the left table, all of the left table, whether or not it matches. And to me, outer infers just the outside. So I like to exclude it based on that fact because I think it's just slightly misleading. But just so you know, left join and left outer join, as far as the syntax goes, are exactly the same. Now, I am going to cover a little scenario here where we do want the outside. So let's say that, okay, I know that I have some non-matching actors. Let's say we want to clean those up. let's say I'm going to delete all the actors who aren't actors, just hypothetical. So I'm going to take our same query, but instead of getting the count of films, I'm going to just get the first name and last name. And just for the sake so we can see it, I'm actually going to get the film ID. Right, so if I exclude this and run this, we'll get all of our actors and the film that they're in. So we have lots. But like I said, I just want to only include actors, or I want to find actors who aren't in films. So in this case, I'm just going to add a where clause. And I'm just going to use my key. So basically take this right here. We can look and say, okay, we joined actor to film actor based on the film actor ID. Now we're including all the actors, whether or not they don't have a film actor record. So if we want to know which ones are the non-matching ones, we can just look for where film actor ID is null. And voila, there we go. We only have me because I'm the only one who's not in a film. So this is what I kind of consider to be a left outer join, because we're only getting records on the left instead of the left and the middle. So that's kind of how I remember and go through the logic. So like, oh, I'm looking for non-matches. I think, okay, yeah, I need to do a left join where the key on the right-hand side is null, if that makes sense. So anyways, that's kind of left join. Does anyone have any questions on that? I know we've kind of been through that a little bit.
I'm good.
Okay.
I don't have any questions on it right now, but if I was to be tested on it, I'm not sure how well I'd do.
Okay, well, let's kind of go through a scenario here. So I'm going to write a query of all the films that have been rented. So, and how many times they've been rented. So it's real similar. But I'm going to swap it just a little bit. So let's say that I have a, let's see, let me remember how this works. Because we have our inventory table. That's the one. Let's see what's in inventory. There's film ID. So I'm going to start off with select everything from rental. Let's make sure that we should have inventory there. Yep. Okay. So I'm going to select r dot rental date. Actually, no, we don't want that. Yeah, let's select the film dot title and yeah, let's just do the count of r dot rental ID. From rental R, inner join inventory I on equal to the R dot inventory ID. Right, so we should be able to run this and add our group by before we forget. Group by f dot title. And maybe it looks like it's a little stuck. Stop it, and I'm just gonna actually get this right here. It was just a one-off. There we go. Just make sure I'm doing this correctly. Ooh, that's a lot. That is a lot. Try again, because that doesn't seem quite right. Select everything from. Let's try it the other way. Film F, interjoin, inventory, I, F dot film ID is equal to an inventory dot film ID. Yep. And then we go there to rental R on I dot inventory ID is equal to R dot inventory ID. There we go. I'm not sure if I, caught my mistake. Right there. Helps if you don't join on the same key. Much better. So let's go back to this. This time we're going to say group by f.title. Let's add our count back in. All right, so now we have our times rented. So now if we wanted to kind of take the base of this right here and find our non-matches, what would we need to do?
Put the little triangle things on in front of it, and then put parentheses.
If we wanted to find the non-matches, because see right now, there's one thing we got to do first, because right now we have only the matches because we're doing inner joins. So from right now, we'll have the rentals that match with inventory, which is great. But then we only have the films that have a match between the result of that. So if we wanted all the films, regardless of whether or not they have been rented, we need to change one join. And I kind of did this a little backwards to, I guess, make it a little bit more interesting. So if we want all of film F, so let's just draw a little picture here real quick. So I always like to start because it kind of just reads like a book. So start on the left. So our first join right here is join 1. And this one is rental. And this one is inventory. Now, as of right now, we're doing an inner join, which means that we only get these, which is great. That's actually okay. So the result of that is going to be joined to film. So I'm again just going to call this R, either for result or for rental, because really the inventory is just the common factor between those. And the other side of this is the film table. Now, right now we're doing a inner join, which means all these films that have never been rented exist over here. So really what we want to do is we want to include this to get started. And then using a where filter, we'll delete the middle. Let's say where not. So
Wouldn't it make sense just to do it from the films and just do it straight from the film then?
yeah, you could, well, we still have to join, so we could flop this and do it, but we'd still have to do the same thing just with left joins, which I'll show here in just a minute. So I'm going to change this to a right join and then add a where I.film ID or where. And actually, I was wrong. We do need this to be a right join because inventory, I believe, just says what movies are at which store. So if we did a, so we want to make sure that's good. So we say where ir.inventory ID is null. Here are all the movies that have not been rented. And let's verify just to make sure. If I add r.rental ID to this output, oh, we're still getting them. So let's see. Oh, because I'm running the wrong one. Let's try again. This time, let's add r.rental ID. Make sure we're running the right query here. And there we go. So you can see that none of these have a rental ID, which means that they have been rented. If that makes sense. And that's a little backwards because if we wanted to do this the other way, we would do f.everything r.rental ID from film F. And in this case, we could say inner join inventory I, because films should be in an inventory. If we wanted to ask which films are not in an inventory, we could ask that question, but the answer is probably none because I think we want them in an inventory. But in this case, we just want to know which inventory hasn't been rented. So it's kind of store specific, if that makes sense. So we're going to inner join that because films are in inventory. So we're going to do that on film ID is equal to I.film ID. Now what we're going to do is we're going to left join because we're going kind of the reverse of this. We're going to go to left join rental on I.inventory ID equals R.inventory ID. So this would give us all the films, whether or not they've been rented. And we can verify that. So like if I just select the rental ID, we can see that some of them have data and some of them are null. If we keep going, I know I've seen a couple like this one. But then if we want to find the ones that have not been rented, we just say where r.inventory ID is null. Then actually select the film. And there it is. So you can kind of see how the direction of our joins matter and the type of join we're doing matters. And based on that, we can find all sorts of information. Like, for example, we can find non-matches. Sometimes you just want to include everything, whether or not it doesn't, like when we wanted the count of how many films the actor's been in. Maybe we just want to include everybody. And so it's important to know that if you're using an inner join, I should say, that you're going to exclude all the non-matches. So if you're expecting something to be there, it might just be because it doesn't match. And sometimes you want to use an inner join. Most of the time, like I think for me, inner join is somewhat of a default. To me, it depends. Am I adding information that's mandatory? If the answer is yes, then I want to include it. If I'm adding some optional columns, because when we join, we're just adding columns, right? If I want to add some optional columns, meaning that some might have it, some might not, but it's just kind of there's extra info, then I use a left join. That help at all?
I'm thinking I'm getting a little bit better now.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So really, and kind of the best way to go through that is to kind of build a couple exercises like this for yourself, where you kind of just say like, oh, I want to find all the maybe there's film categories that don't have films, or something like that, or how many films are in each category. That's a good actually example, because I know that there are some film categories that aren't used, I believe. So it might be something worth trying out if you kind of want like an additional test there, because what kind of makes those a little bit trickier in these contexts are the fact that there's 3 tables involved. So for example, with the categories, we have the category table. That has all the categories. We have a film category, which connects the two. Then obviously we have the film. And the reason that there's that connection, why does film category exist? Well, because a film can be in more than one category. Maybe it's in romance and comedy, for example. We all know how that kind of goes. There's lots of categories. Like just like animation and children children and family often go together, so on and so forth. So that's kind of why that 3rd table is there. But depending on, how you want to go about it, you need to know how to use your left and right joins. For example, let's say we want to do that, how many films are in each category. So we're going to do category name as category. And then we're going to do a count of f.film ID as film count. Now, if I do an inner join here, because film category, if we take a look at film category, looking at film category, would we ever have a category that exists without a film, so to speak? So the whole purpose of film category is to put a film in a category. So if we want to make sure we include categories that don't have any films, this inner join is going to exclude all those. Now I'm going to leave it just for right now, just so we can kind of see what happens. But that's kind of the thought process behind there. Is you think, okay, film ID is going to be in every row of category ID, which means that if we want a category that doesn't have a film attached to it, we can't use an inner join. On C.category ID is equal to film category ID. And then let's do an inner join to film. This would get us only the ones that are in there. Get a group by C.name. Oh, and it looks like there are quite a few. So I guess we'll see if there's any missing ones. So let's see, we have 16 records with there. So now what we're going to do is we're going to fix this so it includes everything. So if I change this to a left join, just so we can do this again. So let's say we do, this is our first one. So we have category, then we have film category. We want all the categories, whether or not they're in the film category table. So in this case, we want all of the categories, which is on the left side. So we do a left join. Now, the result of this is just going to be one table, and I'm going to call it result, R for result, which is really just a combination of category and film category. So this ends up coming over here to be R. And then this is our film. And our R is really going to be, let's call it FC just for the sake of looking here. So now we want everything in film category, whether or not it's in film. And the reason being is because we want everything from category, which is built into this. Make sure we fill in there. So again, we want a left join. Now if we run this, we had 16 last time. Let's see if there's any that don't. Nope, I was wrong. For some reason, I thought there was a category, but you know what? Just for the sake of fun, let's insert one. We're going to make our own category. Insert into category. And I'm going to make a new category called, I think we already have sci-fi. Do we have fantasy? Sci-fi. I don't see a fantasy, which is really unfortunate. So we're going to add one. Right. So now we have this fantasy column. So I'm going to go ahead and rerun this. And now we should see the fantasy column with 0. Now, if I change any of one of these to an inner join and rerun this, our poor little fantasy category is gone. So let's say I changed this one to an inner join. Again, like we talked about, it's still going to be gone because it doesn't exist in that table, because it's never been assigned to a film's never been assigned there. So we need 2 left joins. And then we're there. So that includes everything. Now, if we only want to include ones that don't have a group or a film, we just add a where clause to say where f.filmid is null. And basically, I just like to use the primary key of whatever is on the furthest away from the data I'm looking at. It's kind of my rule of thumb, because then we know that it's not going to be there. So there's that. All right, let me jump back to my notes. Any questions on that before we continue on? So I want to cover just a couple more types of joins. We use cross join a bunch, you know, and especially in this week, they really cover data fabrication, which, and I think we had a pretty good example of that in last week's example, but I kind of wanted to go over it, and because I can't remember if it was from last week or from this week. But we're going to cover it anyways. So, so we kind of actually, we just, let me pull some of this back, because we had how many actors were in films. All right. So this is the name of the actor, or the categories in films. Yeah. So let's just use this as an example. All right. So we have the number of category, how many films are in a category. Actually, no, let's use the actor one. Sorry, I'm going to Control Z to victory here real quick. All right, somewhere here, yes, right there. All right, so here we have our actors and how many films they've been in. And you can see there's variation in how many films there's been in. So let's say we wanted to rank them. We want to give them a bucket, and I guess I shouldn't say rank. We want to bucket these people based on how many films they've been in, right? And let's say we have a criteria of something like this. Let's say that if they've been in 10, they are novice. Let's say that if they've been, let's say from 1 to 10 is novice. Let's say less than 1, or we can just say 0. If they've had 0, then they're, I don't even know what to call it. Potential.
Noobs.
Noobs, that's a good one. Let's call them noobs. All right, so if there's 0, they're noobs. 1 to 10 is a novice. Let's say 11 to 20 is what do we want to call this? Oh, I'm spending way too much time on this, so I'm just going to keep writing some stuff here. 20 to 30 is professional. Actually, we'll call the other one professional. We're going to say this star. And then greater than 30 is legendary.
That's what I was about to say.
All right. So, we kind of want to give these buckets based on this. Now, we could build like a case statement and do that, but, sometimes we want to just do things a little bit more fun. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to select, and this is the reason we call this data fabrication, is that sometimes it's helpful in and of itself, because let's say we want to build a table that holds this information. So that's kind of the I guess scenario I'm going to build off of. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select a name. And the name in this case is going to be, the name of our category. So noobs as name. And then I'm going to select 0 as min value, 0 as max value. And really that's it. And this is where our union comes in. Right. So I'm going to union all, and now we can kind of just keep using this. So now instead of our noobs, we are going to be focusing on our novice actors. And if they have between 1 and 10, then they're novice. And then our professionals are from 11 to 20. You know what? Really, I should change this. And I'm going to, just for the sake of not being crazy, because this is, I guess you could call it a pet peeve of mine. Because to me, like when you hit 30, you should advance to the next tier. You know what I mean? So I'm going to change that just a little bit. So if you've been between 1 and 19, 1 and 9, then 10 and 19, then you're a professional. Otherwise, you are a legend. Wait, one. So noobs, novice is 1 to 9. Professional, we're missing star. That's where we're at. Star, which is from 20 to 29. I need my unions in here. The thing legendary, I'm just going to call it legend, which is from 30 to, I'm going to future proof this to 1,000. If you've been in more than 1,000 movies, then you are beyond legendary. So now I can run this, And you'll notice that it gives me my data here, all right, which is cool. Now we can use this in all sorts of different ways just to kind of put into perspective on why we kind of go about it this way is because we can test it before we actually do it. So actually, before I do that, let's basically make this a subquery. So we have our count of films. We have our left join and everything going on there. So now I'm going to do an inner join. Actually, yeah, let's do an inner join. And we are going to inner join our data that we just made. So I'm going to make parentheses for our subquery. And I'm going to go ahead and paste that right in there. A little bit of a lengthy thing, but that's okay. Tab it in so it makes sense. All right, so there's our subquery. Now we need to give this a name. So I'm going to call it levels. Let's just call it level. In fact, I'm just going to do LVL for short. So level is kind of our level name. All right, so now what I'm going to do is we need to say how we want to join this. So I'm going to say on, and this is where we get to kind of have a little bit of fun. So we're going to say where on the count of this film ID, scrolling all over. And this may not work. We're going to try this because we may have to use a subquery. Is between level dot minval u and dot x value. All right. Let's try this. I don't know if it's going to work. Yes. So it says error code 11111 invalid use of group function. And that's because I'm using this inside of the from clause, which is not good. So what we're going to do instead, and this is why I bring this up, is we're going to do a cross join. Now, what this cross join is going to do is it's actually going to make every possible combination. And I guess I need to select it first. Let's get it here. The level dot name. You know, let's just get rid of the count for right now. All right, so here we can see that all these people are listed basically for every type because we haven't really filtered anything yet. So what we need to do is we need to get the count of the number of movies they've been in and then filter it down. So that's what we're going to do next. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get the number of films they've been in. So because our outer query already connects to film actor, we actually kind of want to just oust that. Right, so we're going to go straight from film actor to level on a cross join. So we have every possible combination of actor and the level they are. So let's go ahead and run that again. And now we'll be able to see it a little clearer. We have Penelope Guinness is a legend, star, professional, you know, so on and so forth. So forth. Everybody has every possible combination. And the reason why I do that cross join with every possible combination is because now we can filter out the stuff that we don't want. So an important part of fabrication is sometimes it's about building everything and then reducing. Sometimes that's easier than trying to just build what you need from scratch, because where clauses are really handy. They're easy to use. So the next thing we want to do is get the total count of how many films our actors have been in. Now, we just went over correlated and non-correlated subqueries. And in this case, we're going to build a correlated subquery because we're going to want to connect our actor to our actor. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the count distinct of film ID from film actor, where actor ID is equal to a dot actor ID. Right, so this is a subquery, and we are just going to get the count of film ID from film actor, where the actor ID is from film actor is equal to the actor ID from here. So if we go ahead and run this, we should get still, let's see what we got here. I messed something up. Oh, I just need a number. Select count, film ID, missing a semi parenthesis. There we go. So we can see that Penelope Guinness has been in 19 films. Now we're still cross joining, so we still have all of those level names, which is just fine, and so on and so forth. So you can kind of see everybody there. So now we just want to filter down. So let's go ahead, and we have our film count. I'm just going to copy this subquery, and I'm just going to say where this is between level.min value and now if we take a look, we only have one record per every actor, and it should match up with their stuff. And just so we can kind of make sure we're in the zone there, I'm going to get, let's put it before the name. I'm going to get the concat level.min value with a dash and level.max value. And now what's nice about this is we can look right across the board here and say, oh, you know, Penelope Guinness is a professional because she's between 10 and 19. Now, if she were to be in one more movie, she would go from professional to a star, so on and so forth. So now we have our data bucketed, which is really nice. Cool. So that is cross join with data fabrication. There's lots of different ways we can use it, lots of different cool ways we can use it. One of those being date creations, which is always really handy. So for example, let's select, so let's say that I wanted to create a list of all the first of each month, right? Which is actually kind of handy, because let's say that you just want like a date of the first of each month, right? Like, oh, I don't care about all the other days. I just want the first of each month because maybe I report something monthly. So what we can do is we can basically build that based on, you know, the months of the year. So let's do select one, union, select two, so on and so forth. Three and four, and I'm just going to do four for now just because it makes sense. So let's select. We're going to call this as month number. Cross join this with select. Let's say that we don't want the first. Let's say we want the, like, let's say we're figuring what days are we going to be paying on, and we pay every month on the 5th and the 20th. It's actually a pretty good use case. So we're going to cross join. You know, we pay bi-monthly. I'm going to call that day number. So if we wanted to basically build a data set of everything that is, all of our monthly pay periods. And let's see where I messed up here. An extra union. All right, so you can kind of see how we're building this. So now if to kind of put this last little spin on it, what we're going to do is we're going to select, we're going to concatenate the year, which I'm just going to put it in there, 2021. And we're going to use month num. Then there we go. And have all of our dates. Now we would want to add a trailing, a leading 0, which I think we can do with the pad function. Let's see if we can. Yeah, left pad. We'll add leading 0. Left pad. So on our day number, we want to pad this to be 2 digits long with a 0. And I need to add my missing parenthesis again. There we go. So now we have all of our pay dates in 2021. Now, I mean, obviously I didn't do them all, but you can see how I can quickly fabricate that. So now let's go one more little section here. And let's say for every, pay date, we want to add a record for how many people we have. So like, let's say our actors. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cross join again with actor A. And now what we're going to do is instead of just having our pay date, we're going to have a.actor ID and a.actor, a.first name, a.last name. So now we have a lot, but for every actor now we have every day that they'll get paid. So you can see how with the cross join, we can, with very little amount of code, really shorten our workload. Because can you imagine trying to like in Excel copy and paste all this to build this all out when really we can just multiply it, right? And from here, even if we wanted to, we could actually say how much they're going to get paid based on how many, their level, but we're not going to go there. So anyways, cross joins are cool. They're good for data fabrication. Any questions about that? That's just to make this like really official. Let's just turn this into a date. There we go. All right, so the last thing I want to cover real quick is a natural join. And a natural join is basically where we let the database decide how to join. So for example, a real simple one is from country to city, I believe. Yes, so city has a country ID, right? Pretty simple join, just kind of a hierarchy kind of a join. So let's select everything from city natural join country. And of course, we don't get anything. So for whatever reason, this doesn't work. It should, but basically a natural join is where it basically tries to decide for us. Let's just take a look, see what's in here. So city has a country ID. What does country have? Yeah, I'm not sure why that didn't work, but it should have. But anyways, this join type is not recommended at all for reasons just demonstrated. So best to avoid that. But if you do come across it, that's what it does. Basically, it tries to join on a foreign key that exists, which in this case, I'm not sure why it didn't work, but it didn't. So anywho, let me try another one. Select. And actually, I wonder, let's select city dot name and country dot name and see if we get anything. City. I think it's city dot city. And country dot country. Still nothing. Yeah, so I'm not sure why that's not working, but that's what the natural join does. So just so you know. But again, not recommended. In fact, I've never seen it in all of my like 10 years of being in the industry. I've never seen a natural join used out in the wild. So best just to avoid it. But anyways, that's pretty much all I had. Does anyone have any questions? All right. Well, if there's no questions, then I guess have a great week. And yeah, hope to see you next time. And if you have any questions throughout the week, just feel free to let me know.